Welcome to the Voice of Leadership podcast, Volume 3, issue number 1. This issue's theme is sensing change ahead of the curve and leading it artfully. My name is Assegid Habtewold and I am your host. Change has been with us since the beginning of our civilization. It is not new. The only change we are experiencing these days is pace of change has quickened. Now it happens so fast and on a consistent basis. I suggest that you pause this podcast and enumerate some of the changes that have been going on in your life and organization recently. How frequently change happens? How do you feel about it? Do you feel like you are in control? Are you comfortable in leading change? Or is it stretching you? And it is hard to cope up with changes that are going on right now. Do you think that you are prepared and well trained to handle change? Write down the answers for these questions or engage in conversation with your friends. You should know that it's very important to assess your position at this stage of our conversation so that you know where you are, and at the end of this conversation you could be able to measure your progress. Another thing to notice is that change used to affect certain sectors more than others. There are some industries that have been affected by change more frequently and more severely than others. Was change in your organization used to be just once in a while occurrence in the past? Or did your industry being affected by change more than other industries? What about now? Now, no one is exempted. Change happens at all levels, leaving no one from being untouchable. There is no zone called the change-free zone. Take time and recognize the pace of change in your industry. Think about the pace of change in your own organization. Is it faster than you can manage, or it's normal, or even very slow? Before we proceed, let me ask you a simple question. How many types of change do we have? If you said 2, you're right. We are on the same page. When we talk about change, there are 2 types of change: unplanned and planned change. Let me ask you, are you equipped to lead both kinds of change? Which one is easier for you, and which one challenges you the most? Are these gaps in your ability that may deter you from leading change effectively? How do you plan to overcome the challenges and bridge the gap? Answering these questions is very important. As leaders, we should be equipped to provide leadership for both types of change. Let me quickly describe the difference between these 2 change types. Unplanned or spontaneous change happens all the time, and we don't have much control about when it happens, and we may not have much flexibility to respond to it. It occurs without warning. We are forced to respond to unplanned changes without any pre-planned preparation. However, we can create an organizational design that can handle unprepared change smartly. We can also have a system that can turn these kinds of changes that may upset our progress into opportunities. We can also empower our people and create a procedure on how to solve unplanned changes before they affect our goals, which in turn may derail the morale of our people. In this podcast, my focus is on how we could lead planned changes artfully and smartly. When it comes to planned change, we should have a clear end in mind and strategize well before we begin changing things. Communicating with our people constantly and empowering them to carry out the change agenda is mandatory if our desire is to enjoy the full benefits of leading planned changes. This podcast is aimed at preparing you to lead planned changes effectively. Simply stated, the more you prepare for a change ahead of the curve, the better you will benefit from the experience. Also, you can maneuver and deploy your scarce resources such as your people, time, and finance more effectively. But what we see in some organizations is that leaders and or team members resisting change as much as they could hold it. But there are prices for resisting change. What happens when you resist changing your car's engine oil? What happens if your circulatory system stops refreshing your blood? It doesn't take a genius to understand the impacts of these kinds of resistances. When you don't change the oil of your car's engine regularly, your car breaks down and leads you to spend your hard-earned money to fix it. You would have saved lots if you have attended the health of your car by carrying out frequent maintenance, including changing your car's engine oil. What happens if your blood doesn't get enough oxygen and nutrients? You get sick and even dies. When you get sick, you have to go to a hospital, and that definitely drains your bank account. You could have saved yourself from paying these unwanted prices by maintaining the freshness of your blood. One of the most important characteristics of change you should know as you prepare to lead planned changes is that change is a process. If change is a process, then we have to understand this process to succeed as change agents and play our roles in the different phases of change. We should study the different models that are available so that we may easily comprehend and explain how change works to all stakeholders. They should know what is expected of them throughout the process of change, and change models are very helpful to accomplish this important task. What are some of the change models you are aware of? Which change model your organization uses most of the time? Or do you use multiple models? Let me share with you 3 commonly used change models. First, Lewin Change Management Model. Second, Bridge Transition Model. And third, John Kotter 8-Step Change Model. Let me give you an assignment. Please make a research and read about these change models. One more assignment. Study how these change models overlap one another. When you closely study these models, you could be able to notice that they share some common features and steps. Ask yourself, for instance, which steps from John Kotter change model align with Lewin's change management model's 3 phases. You may pick one or more of these change models and explain them to your people. Enlist the actions that should be undertaken within each phase or step. You should also help your people know their roles and responsibilities under each stage of change. Research shows that change agendas fail because of the leader's inability to engage all stakeholders. Change requires the participation of all parties, including resistors and fence-sitters. Many change experts recognize 3 types of people in regard to how they react to change. These 3 kinds of people are endorsers, resistors, and fence-sitters. Many times leaders don't care to ask why resistors and fence-sitters do not want to endorse their change agenda. You can just depend on those who bought into your change agenda right away. Your ability to lead change artfully and effectively demands you to engage and finally wins all, or at least the majority of stakeholders in your side. You should also know what you should communicate in each phase, with whom and how. Go back and review history. Ask yourself, why different companies succeeded while this and that failed? The leaders of the former are skillful in recognizing the coming of change ahead of the curve. They are artful communicators who gain buy-in from the majority of their people. Do you want to be like one of them? You could be able, but understand how change works first. Just one quick example. Why did Senator Barack Obama won his 2008 presidential bid? There could be many reasons, of course, but he understood that the traditional way of raising funds was gone. He was willing to change with the time while his counterparts failed to sense the change. He embraced information technology and mobilized the young generation, who have had no such significant role in sending presidents into the White House. Other presidential candidates who were well able and experienced than him failed to sense the importance of using internet and engaging in grassroots level fundraising. They stumbled and were unable to change. They stuck with the old way of doing things and they paid the price. They pursued the traditional form of fundraising by involving big donors. On the other hand, Obama gave the option to ordinary citizens to donate as small as $5 online. What was most impressive was that he communicated his change agenda very effectively using his website, cell phones, and social media. Otherwise, almost all candidates talked about change, but they failed to communicate effectively with the majority of young voters. Why are some CEOs are paid lavishly than others? One of the reasons is that they have this discernment ability to sense change ahead of the curve before it affects their organization. They dive deep into the future and lead change that positions their organizations strategically to enjoy competitiveness. They are good team players and able to engage all stakeholders. There is no wonder why these kinds of leaders are paid well, promoted, celebrated, and sought after. You too can also join these elite leaders who know how to lead change smartly, artfully, and effectively. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that the art of leading change is one of the most important prerequisites to succeed as a leader of the 21st century. The question to you is that, can you sense a coming change ahead of the curve? Do you engage all stakeholders from the very beginning of your change initiative? Are you willing to communicate your success, failures, and challenges throughout the process and to all stakeholders? Are you skillful in motivating your people constantly? Do you empower your people to meet their responsibilities? Do you reward people who deserve recognition and incentive? The question continues. I encourage you to take time and evaluate the changes that are going on right now in your organization. In which stage are these changes? Are you doing the right things to successfully and artfully lead these changes? What is slowing down your change progress? What are some of the barriers that kept you from transiting from the stage where you are now into the next phase? Let's quickly engage in evaluating what we have discussed so far. What new lessons have you got from this discussion? What new approaches are you going to pursue because of these new discoveries? Let me stop this important discussion here. If you want me help you facilitate a workshop on leading change artfully, or consult you in leading your change agenda, let me know. My number is 703-895-4551. You may also email me at assegidh@gmail.com. My first name, the initial of my last name, at gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening.